Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Mike and Beans. I'm Beans, and I'm with Mike.
What's up?
We apologize it took a little bit of a break. I guess we had a little bit of a long winter break of our own, but now, new year, new Mike and Beans, we're back. Happy to be back. Lots to talk about. This episode, we're just going to talk about the NFL and some college basketball. But we'll start with the NFL. The playoffs are coming up. Week 18 is here. It is upon us. And there are multiple playoff implications this week. So let's hop into it. We're going to start with the Raiders and Chargers. I want to start with that. That game is on Sunday night. It's basically a winner take all. Whoever wins is in, unless the Colts lose and they decide to tie or they just kneel the whole game. And boy, with Steelers fans and Ravens fans, Steelers fans or Ravens fans, they'd be down very bad. But I don't think that's going to happen. So we'll preview the Chargers and Raiders real quick. I think it's kind of simple. Or I know, Mike, you're just not a fan of the Raiders in the first place. You're probably wondering how the hell they're in this situation right now. But I think it's going to come down to how Justin Herbert plays. If Justin Herbert plays well, the Chargers play well. If Justin Herbert doesn't play well, I don't think the Chargers win. I think, it might be more complex than that, but I think that's kind of what it comes down to. When Justin Herbert, throws for 200 plus yards, 3-4 touchdowns, and, when Austin Eckler's on, Chargers are hard to stop. But when they're inconsistent, I think the Chargers are one of the most inconsistent teams this year. They lost to the Texans, and they just have some losses, but just some bad losses. So I'm not saying that the Raiders, are in trouble, because they're really not. I think the Raiders kind of have proved everyone wrong throughout the year when they beat the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. I don't think anyone expected them to beat the Colts on the road, but now they're in this situation. We'll see what Derek Carr does. So, Mike, what do you have to rant about?
I think for starters, you have to give Bisaccia, who is the new coach of the Raiders, a little bit of respect for Coach of the Year. I don't think he should be, at all, but he took over a situation that was John Gruden-ified, and he turned them into a team that is a borderline playoff team. Mm-hmm. That being said, this game is kind of falls straight into the Mike and Beans lore, so to speak, because week 4, I was absolutely going in on how this Raiders team was a fraud and how the Chargers were going to curb stomp them. Gruden's not a good coach. This defense is not good. This roster is not good. Bolt up, Chargers by 20 plus. Book it. Chargers won that game by 14. And I'm like, all right, that's the only time a Raiders-Chargers game is going to matter. I can sit back and take my victory lap and act like I'm a genius. Now they're playing for a playoff spot. It's just come on. Come on. This Raiders team isn't good. They're they beat Drew Lock, Carson Wentz, who's terrible, Baker Mayfield. It's that. They got Heineke'd. They got smoked by the Chiefs twice because Gus Bradley's the only DC in the world who thinks, let's run one safety against Mahomes and let's see how that works. Spoiler alert, the Chiefs put up almost 100 points in 2 games against him, so it doesn't work. The Raiders are just bad. I don't know how they're here. They've won a couple fluky games because that's what they do. And now they're playing a team whose defense can't tackle. So they actually have a chance at making the playoffs, and it sucks because they're just going to run the ball up the gut or give it a right throw. Chargers miss a tackle, 70-yard touchdown. But the Chargers are going to win this game. They're so much better. I know they're stupid. I've said it all year. They're just a dumb franchise. You can't lose to the Texans. You just can't lose to the Texans. You got playoff on the line. Your team controls their own destiny. You play this tough game to the Chiefs where the Chiefs came back and won, but it wasn't man, that was such a tough loss for the Chargers. It was, Chargers played pretty freaking good. They played pretty freaking good. And then they lose to the Texans. Davis Mills, Rex Burkhead looked like LaDainian Tomlinson. So it's just the Chargers should win this game. They're so much better. Justin Herbert's better than Derek Carr. Austin Eckler's better than Josh Jacobs. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams are better than anyone the Raiders are running out. And you have Derwin James and Joey Bosa. I don't know if they're both going to play, but those are the 2 best defensive players in this game. If you just go down the line, the Chargers have the better roster. It's in Vegas, but I don't think that matters. The Chargers should win. The Chargers should kill them. But it doesn't make sense. The Raiders have a minus 68 point differential and are 9-7 and are fighting for a playoff spot.
Well, we talked about it earlier in the year.
Just win, Chargers.
We thought the Chargers were going to be a team to look out for. And, they still are. If they win and they're in, I don't know if I want to face Justin Herbert. Yeah, they have to go on a road. They probably have to go on the road to where? Maybe Cincy or something.
Probably something like that.
That could be a very good game. But the Chargers have the offensive firepower to make a difference in the game. And I mean, their defense is not terrible. Joey Bosa is Joey Bosa. Derwin James. But like you said, they can't tackle. And that's kind of what you need to do in football.
I am fully rooting for the tie, though. When the Colts lose, I'm fully rooting for just a Sunday night game of just 60 minutes of just kneels. That would be so funny. The amount of you would just progressively see fans getting angrier and angrier and angrier, and I would just be having a better and better and better time. It would be electric.
But do you think there's a chance the Colts lose to the Jaguars?
No. It would be funny, though.
It would be. Hopefully, Trevor Lawrence can give us one last hoorah.
Yeah, that and these teams hate each other. They're not going to give them a free playoff spot. They don't. The Chargers and Raiders hate each other. They're rivals. But if this game gets to overtime, if it gets 24-24 in overtime, I think the knees are possible. If the Colts lose, which is impossible, and the overtime is also impossible. So note that.
Do you see? Well. If the Colts somehow lose to the 2-14 Jaguars, could you see the Steelers or Ravens sneaking in? I know the Ravens need to beat the Steelers, and that would take the Steelers out. But if the Steelers win, they need that game to just not end in a tie. That Chargers and Raiders game to not end in a tie. Could the Steelers sneak in? I think they could, but do you think it's going to happen? I personally.
Steelers are not good. They're not good. Ben sucks. Let's call it for what it is. He's terrible. I think he threw 45 times and didn't average over 3 yards per attempt last game, which is ridiculous. He's basically throwing the ball backwards at this point. The Steelers' offensive line, where the Dolphins have the worst offensive line in the league, and people said the Steelers would, the Steelers still isn't good. Their defense, to be fair, really good. Their offense is terrible. They can't do anything. They don't move the ball. If the Ravens score 20 points, I don't think the Steelers can win the game. And the Ravens have just been hurt so badly. Marlon Humphrey is out now. Jimmy Smith was out. Marcus Peters has been out for the year. Their secondary's thrown to bits. Big Ben can't attack that. So advantage Ravens. Huntley's got to start because Lamar's hurt.
Still?
Yeah, Lamar's not playing. So I think it's best for the Ravens almost to just wait. Yeah, wait out on Lamar like they are. I don't think Lamar would be able to play the playoff game. I mean, there was practice clip of him. He couldn't run. It was he threw the ball and then they were moving forward to do a drill. He couldn't move. So Lamar, he's just too hurt. You can't run him out there. For a playoff game, I'd be too worried. I don't know. I'm no read just because the Colts are gonna win. So it's not even a thought experiment that matters.
Well, if the Colts lose to the Jaguars, I don't know what I'd do. I don't know.
It'd be so fun.
Well, I mean, the Jags beat the Bills. The Texans beat the Chargers. I think there's a chance of it happening. I just don't think it's a great chance.
I wouldn't put it over 2%.
Well, that's how much trust we have in the Jaguars. But anyway, we'll move to the NFC West. The NFC West is an interesting division. That division title has not been decided yet. It's still between the Rams and the Cardinals. The Rams play the 49ers, and the Niners are in a playoff spot right now, but they still need to win. And if the Rams lose and the Cardinals win, the Cardinals get the NFC West. The Cardinals play the Seahawks, who have been terrible this year. I think it's possible the Cardinals could win, and we might see the Cardinals with an NFC title by the end of the week. Now, is Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford and company gonna not let the Niners win? Hell no. So that's going to be an interesting game to watch. But I think Jimmy G is back. I think he's going to play.
Yeah.
And I don't think Trey Lance didn't look great against the Texans last week. So But I think that Niners team could be very fun to watch in the playoffs. I think I like Elijah Mitchell, Deebo Samuel, running back, wide receiver.
I love Debo.
He's
so good.
When I played him in fantasy,
He's so good. He's so fun.
It was very annoying to watch, but because he being running back, then you go catch a 20-yard pass.
Yep.
Great player, but pissed me off in fantasy. But yes, the NFC West is going to be interesting to watch this weekend. So, what do you think is going to happen, Mike?
First of all, this is a division where I picked the Seahawks to win the title. They are the one team that will not make the playoffs, assuming things go the Niners' way. But I think the Niners present some weird playoff matchups. Like, I think they're a bad matchup for the Packers because the Packers can't stop the run. The Packers are the 1 seed, by the way. So this only matters if they can win a game. But the Packers can't stop the run and I don't think they're particularly well coached. And they have the worst special teams in the league. The Niners are usually good in that like special team stuff. They'll find weird ways to get points. They run the ball really well. And Shanahan is an overrated coach. So they got 2 of the 3 things you need. So I think that they present some weird matchups for the Packers, but I'm not sure they beat the Rams. The Rams, they got something to play for. And where I thought the Cardinals were dead weeks ago, I was on a call with one of my buddies and I'm like, yeah, they're dead. They're not going to win another game this year. Maybe they get lucky and go on like the Kurt Warner run they did like a couple of years back, but then they go down and beat the Cowboys. Now, are the Cowboys overrated? Absolutely. They're frauds. They've always been frauds, always will be frauds because they're frauds. But that's still impressive. It's still impressive to go in a game where your team was dead and then you beat the Cowboys. I don't think they played particularly well. Dak looked horrible, but it's still impressive to win that game. Wouldn't surprise me if the Seahawks beat them, frankly. Just Russell Wilson's probably his last game there. Pete Carroll, if it isn't Pete Carroll's last game, I don't know what to say. He's got to go.
Seahawks fans might be in for a rebuild in the next coming years.
It should be. I think Russell Wilson's gone. Pete Carroll should be gone because if you follow the surrender index on Twitter of cowardly punts, it is basically just Pete Carroll. I mean, he's like, it's 4th and 2 on my opponent's 37. Let's take 5-yard penalty and punt it. What are you doing? What are you doing? Come on. So, I mean, I don't know. It's so weird because I'm not sold on the Cardinals winning, but they should. But I don't know with that team. They've lost some stupid games. Like in the Colts game, they have 4 minutes. They're down 10. They drive the full field. It takes way too long. There's like 30 seconds left. They're at the 7-yard line, like 3rd and goal. And Kingsbury took the field goal. What are you doing? What? You have to go for 7. You have to get the 7. And then you get the onside kick. You're probably not going to get anyway. But if you do, 1 play and you're in field goal range. You have to take the point, you dummy. What are you doing? What are you doing? It was so stupid. So stupid. And that team could win the division. It's Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford's been good in games, and then he's just been terrible. Like, his numbers look good, but if you watch games, it's just like sometimes he's just airing throws. Like I don't know.
Well, he's been a little lucky the last 2 weeks, Stafford.
Oh, yeah.
Because he played the Vikings, and I think he threw 3 picks that game. And then I'm pretty sure 2 more picks against the Ravens, but the Rams still won.
Mm-hmm.
So it's possible. Well, come playoff time, that's going to be different because you're not going to play as bad teams. But Matthew Stafford does need to be on in order for the Rams to succeed. I can definitely see them in the Super Bowl.
Yep.
They are at their peak. They are one of the best teams in the NFL. So, but kind of like the Chargers situation. Stafford's not on. The Rams are not on. If Stafford's throwing pick sixes, the Rams are going to lose, and at least come playoff time. Now, I can see if they match up against the Cowboys. I can see if Stafford doesn't play well. I can still see the Rams winning because I think, like you said, I think the Cowboys are very overrated.
Yep.
But luckily, the NFC East sucks, and who knows? Maybe. No, the NFC East sucks. Cowboys are overrated. Eagles are probably overrated as well. Team sucks. Giants sucks.
I don't know what you're talking about. Glennon and Fromm are having some fire weeks. Maybe they can cross 100 passing yards next week.
There you go. Hopefully. Mike Glennon's game last week, he was like, I think he completed 4 passes, 25 yards and 2 picks and 4 fumbles. So
But
if you're
Joe Judge is telling you that there are players on the team that have said we need to come back, or if they're free agents and they're begging him to come back. So he must be telling the truth there.
Well, Mike Glennon is definitely not an MVP candidate, but I do want to talk about MVP candidates. There's 3 main ones: Aaron Rodgers, the Packers; Tom Brady, the Bucks; and Jonathan Taylor of the Colts. Now, what I want to happen is for Jonathan Taylor to win MVP. He's been awesome. The last 4 games, he's had 100 plus rushing yards. He's got 18 rushing touchdowns this year, and he's really kept the Colts season alive in a lot of games. Against the Bills, he had 4 touchdowns. But what I think is actually going to happen, or he had 5 touchdowns, I think.
Something ridiculous. He's so good.
Yeah, Jonathan Taylor's good, but I think Aaron Rodgers is going to win it again. Every time you think, it's possibly his last year in Green Bay, and every time you think Aaron Rodgers is getting old, he's not. He's Aaron Rodgers. He's still slicing up defenses, and as much as you may want him to leave the league and stuff, with what his beliefs are, he's had that COVID debacle with the media and stuff. But he just outperforms everyone. It is really fun to watch, but that's what I think is going to happen. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to win MVP. But Jonathan Taylor, you have my vote. What about you?
I think the most fair punishment for Rodgers is trading him to the footballs. Look, he has to go to an organization that sucks, that could get sewage water on him, and I can watch a Super Bowl, like a Super Bowl-ish team, just because Aaron Rodgers shows up. So win-win. But it's Rodgers. This was a year where if there was like an MVP candidate that really showed up, a quarterback, it has to be a quarterback, basically. They could take it just because Rodgers had it last year. Voter fatigue is obviously a thing. And it's not like Rodgers is playing like perfect football. He's playing insanely good football, but not perfect, I would say. He's like right there. So if there was someone who was playing like a tick below, they probably would take over Rodgers, like a Kyler Murray, who's fun, a Josh Allen, but Rodgers has just been so good. I think Cooper Kupp is someone who should be getting a little bit more recognition than he is, just because the season he's having is insane. He is the Rams offense. Let's not kid ourselves. People want to say Stafford should be getting MVP votes. It's Cooper Kupp. It's Kupp by a mile. Kupp's having one of the best seasons a wide receiver I think ever has. So I think he's the guy that should be getting more recognition. I like the Taylor look. Taylor's been excellent. I think if that team wins the division, which I believe they would need a Titans loss, and
I don't think they can win it because the Titans are 11-5, and the Colts
the Colts need the record tiebreaker. You're right. Because they lost twice.
Yeah.
So that was my argument last week. So clearly I'm a week behind, but yeah, it's Rodgers' to lose. I don't think Rodgers loses it unless he has he's not even going to play this week. So I think Rodgers seals it, basically. He deserves it. Rodgers has been the best player in the league. He should be traded to the footballs as a punishment for being so good and doing what he did with the vaccine. I'm with it. I still love you, Josh. Josh should have won it last year. He got screwed by a Tuesday game and the voters not seeing greatness. But it's Rodgers. If I had to go like an outside-the-box vote, it would be Cooper Kupp. And Brady doesn't deserve it. Their team's fine. He's good, but not good enough.
Well, hopefully we'll get in a NFL playoff preview next week.
Yep.
But that concludes the NFL talk. Now we're going to talk some college basketball. Some decent games this week. I think the best game we have is Kansas versus Texas Tech, in my opinion. Well, at least that was the ranked. Those were the 2 ranked teams games. But Mike, any games to watch this week? I know this is your stuff. It's here.
You see, so my teams play today. My Hoyas play Marquette. My Butler Bulldogs play Xavier. So I'm really just locked in on today. And hopefully I can get one. Look, there's a chance I could get 2. But I think I know I'm biased. I'm going to say this, but I don't care. The Big East has produced some awesome games. Big East Red Zone definitely didn't live up to my hype. It was not very well done. But the Big East has produced some excellent games. Like every game is really close down to the wire, except Marquette blowing Providence out, which no one saw coming. Providence has played some really close games. Seton Hall played some really good games. Everything has been close and competitive. So I think if you want like a blanket conference to watch, it's the Big East. I think Michigan State is a game to watch just because, I mean, rivalry games are always great. And Michigan needs the win. They're going against the Michigan State team that has looked really good this year. So I think that's a fun game. You get Marcus Bingham, who looks like to be the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year, versus Hunter Dickinson, who is just awesome. So that's the game you're going to have to look out for. Kansas, Texas Tech, as you mentioned. I think those are the big ones, really. Those are like you need to see them. And Tennessee, LSU should be fun too.
Yep. LSU, that Kentucky game was really fun to watch.
It was.
And the way that game ended, LSU, playing great defense.
It was so stupid at the end because Kentucky didn't have a point guard, so they couldn't score for like 9 minutes. And then all of a sudden, they just turn it on. As soon as Michael sends a tweet that says Davion Mintz isn't ready for prime time, Davion Mintz hits like 2 threes. It's like, come on. And then the last play, I think Kentucky got a steal. I think it was Sheboy who got the steal. But then he just throws it in the middle of 2 guys. Was that this game or am I mixing games up? It was something stupid at the end. Yeah. And they both went for the ball. Neither ended up getting it. It goes to LSU. Dunk ball game. It was ridiculous. It was excellent.
Yes.
I
want to go back to that. I want to go back to the Michigan State game.
Yeah.
Now, Michigan was ranked in the top 5 to start the year. Correct me if I'm wrong.
You're correct. Maybe there were 6, but I would have had them in my top 5.
And they're 7-6, right now?
Yeah, they've been bad.
They've lost to UCF, I think, and I think they have 2 other bad losses. So, I mean, Hunter Dickinson has been really good, one of the best players in the country, but he has no help, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, Michigan needs to win this game. And, it's a long season. There's still a lot of Big Ten games to be played. But if they lose, at least a close loss wouldn't be terrible. But if they get blown out, they're going to struggle to, get the tourney committee's respect to make the tournament if, they don't do well in the Big Ten tournament or something.
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, they don't look like a tournament team right now. I do expect them to turn it on, but like they've lost to Rutgers, who they should be beating. I love Rutgers though. UCF, Minnesota. They lost to a UNC team that can't defend and only put up 51 points on them. I think that's the least UNC's allowed all year. And then they got smoked by Arizona and Seton Hall beat them. Those are 2 good teams. But the rest of those games, if you're a top 5 team, frankly, you should be beating Seton Hall at home too. But if you're a top 5 team, you have to win those games. They're 7-6. Their best win, what? Nebraska? San Diego State? Buffalo? Like, they haven't beaten anybody. They've every single time they've been tested, they've been bad. And when I looked at the roster earlier in the year, it's like, okay, 5 stars. Musti Diabate, Caleb Houston. Good class. They bring back Eli Brooks. Devontae Jones is a point guard, looked really good in the G League Elite Camp, looked really good on Coastal Carolina, and was better than Mike Williams was when they were like entering the school they were going, when they were both entering Michigan. Yet he looked bad. Like, he is nothing on what Mike Smith brought that team. I mean, it's just Hunter Dickinson's putting up 16 and 8, and they're lucky to get 15 from anybody else. I really liked Kobe Buffkin as a recruit. He was another McDonald's All-American. He's done nothing. Frankie Collins is a kid I really like. He's done nothing. Terrence Williams was a local kid. He was a baller. I went to Gonzaga. He was a baller. He won them WCAC titles. He's done nothing. They've just got nothing out of anyone that isn't Hunter Dickinson. They look bad. Their defense is what really got them titles last year. Like, their defense was like some of the best in the country. It went from like top 5 in the country. It's 48th according to KenPom now. It's bad. It doesn't make sense. I don't know. Is it a coaching thing? Is it just the players not performing? It doesn't make any sense. Was it last year just a one-hit wonder from a team nobody expected? I don't know. This team should have like national title hope. Entering the year, they definitely had national title hopes. I was all in on this team. I thought they could have probably beaten Purdue for the league title just because I thought they were more well balanced. I'll tell you right now, they've done nothing. They've done nothing to surprise me. Yeah, I mean, they're the most disappointing team of the year. There are other teams that contend with them, but you don't go from a top 5 team to a team that probably won't make the tournament at this rate. I still think they do. I think they turn it on, but yikes. I mean, they've underperformed tremendously.
Well, Michigan fans, that's not a great look.
No.
So
they need this game.
Mike,
they need
anything
it.
else on the college basketball?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, disappointing teams. I was in on this Memphis team. I don't know why. Like, it's kidding myself at this point. Amani Bates looks like he's playing AAU ball. You have Jalen Duren comes in. He's been mediocre at best. I still think Jalen Duren's a boo, though he's had some great games, but he's not consistent. They're not getting consistency out of that team. You have vets like Landers Nolley, DeAndre Williams, guys like that, and they're just doing nothing. Like, I don't know. I think and when you're a team that has so many good offensive weapons and you're relying on your defense, it's bad. Like, it's bad. I don't know. I don't trust Penny. That team should be so good. They should be so good. And they're just losing some dumb games.
Yeah, I was about to ask, is Penny Hardaway the coach you want, for those types of players? I don't think so.
I mean, he's recruiting an elite class. Like, Memphis wasn't getting guys like these when Tubby was there, or we're just going down the line. You're getting top 5 classes. Like, I think they had the best class this year. You had Jalen Duren, Amani Bates. You have Josh Minott, who looks really good. Earl Timberlake transferred in. Like, they had guys. Like, going down the line, you're just like, hooper. Like, these guys should be, like, legit top 10 team. It's like, it'd almost be hard to see how they underperform. And they're underperforming because Amani Bates thinks he's playing AAU ball. There's, like, no direction. Amani Bates is also playing point guard. When your point guard thinks he's in AAU ball, that's a problem. There's no real offense, like, to get behind. And, like, when they lost to a team like Iowa State, we'll get to them later, but that's still a team you are so much more talented than. And Iowa State beat you pillar to post. Like, they dominated that game. The AC is open, thankfully, because, well, I shouldn't say thankfully. I like that Houston team a lot, and I still think they win the league title. But when you have your 2 best players, basically, Marcus Sasser, Tremont Mark, your 2 leading scorers, done for the year. Like, they got brutalized by injuries. That Houston team is still great program, but I don't know. They got hit with injuries and transfers last year. They still made a Final Four. This year, I think it's insurmountable. But I still think they're going to make the tournament. I still think they win the league, but the AC is open because they're just so injured.
And I know you have some biggest surprises so far this year. Hit me.
Yes. So the first one I wanted to hit on is Arizona. I mean,
oh, that's right.
Goodness. I didn't think they'd be a top 5 team. I think they should be ranked number 2. Like, everything I've seen out of them, they look absolutely excellent. Like, they beat Michigan. They dominated Michigan. Then they go into Champaign. With how Maryland looked last night, granted, Maryland sucks, but still, with how Maryland looked last night against Kofi Cockburn, they shouldn't have been able to put up a fight, and they won that game. They beat Michigan by 18, and they've cruised in games. They beat Illinois in a game they were leading basically the entire time. They got a scare from Wichita State because Tyson Etienne is one of the best players in the country that no one talks about, and he was just going off at the end. But they still won that game, a game that they were, like, losing, like, for quite a long stretch. And, like, Wichita State went on a big run, and Arizona State still put them away. And their loss to Tennessee came out firing early, like, really early. Like, the guards, Tennessee is an elite defensive team. It was in Tennessee. It's a hard game to win. Tennessee looked great early, and Arizona almost came back, but they just couldn't. But Ben Mathurin has put on an All-American caliber year. He is averaging 18 and 6 on 50% shooting, 38% from 3. He is playing out of his mind. He is an All-American type player. As I mentioned, he looks excellent. Then you've just got going down the roster. You got another guy averaging 15, Ezos Tubelis, whose name I can't pronounce. Christian Koloko, 13. Kirk Risa, 12 and 5 as a legit lead guard, which you didn't really see coming based on the player last year. If he wears a headband too, he looks pretty badass in games. I mean, this offense is just firing at all cylinders. They are incredibly tough to stop. And their defense is great too. It's like, it shouldn't be, but it's just working. Tommy Lloyd comes in from Gonzaga as Mark Hughes' lead assistant. And people were like, yeah, he'll be a fine coach, but it shouldn't be something that you get immediately. Like, Sean Miller had that program in disaster, basically. They're playing at a fast tempo too, so they're fun to watch, and they're just dominating games. The top 3 in the Pac-12 of Arizona, USC, and UCLA are going to give some excellent games. Now, I believe Arizona was going to play USC in a game that got postponed, which sucks because That would have been such an awesome game, and I think Arizona would have won and finally gotten the respect they deserve. But my goodness, that team is absolutely excellent. They are my first biggest surprise. And number 2 is Iowa State, as I mentioned earlier. That's a team that my conference preview that I just wrote for myself, just to have, just because it's like, I want to look at the college basketball season before it happens. I want to see what I think. The first word I wrote was sucks. Blake Hinton left the program on an already tough roster from a team that stunk last year. They won like 1 game last year. Now they're 13-1. I mean, look, I like Coach Otzelberger, I wrote, but it's going to take time. Mike Dahl might walk in through those doors. They've got pieces. Tyrese Hunter is a top-tier freshman point guard. Tristan Enaruna was solid in spot minutes at Kansas. And Isaiah Brockington is a solid second option. That's all I've got. They got a transfer that followed Coach Otzelberger everywhere, which I thought was fun. But that's it. It's just a team, transfers thrown together to keep the team competitive, to be like, yeah, we're going to rebuild, but we'll win 4 games in conference this year. And we'll look solid doing it. Like, we'll look like, yeah, this is progress. They're a top 10 team. There's no other way to put it. They beat Xavier. They beat Memphis. They went into Creighton and beat them. They beat Iowa comfortably. They lost to Baylor. They lost to Baylor. That's the best team in the country right now. And they lost to them by 5 in a game that was competitive the entire time. And then they beat Texas Tech in one of the weirdest, worst, yet best 51-47 games I've ever watched.
Ugh.
It was ugly, but at the end of the game, the fans just willed Iowa State to getting foul calls. Isaiah Brockington has a 4-point play, and it's just ball game. They couldn't score in the second half, and they still won the game. It was impressive. And look, their offense isn't good. They're going to fall off. They're not going to be performing at the rate they're performing now. They were a top 10 team. They're probably going to end as a top 20 team. I still think that's incredibly impressive for the roster they were given, but I think they're going to fall off a bit. And they're having a tough time scoring. As I mentioned, that Texas Tech game, Isaiah Brockington's averaging 17 and 8, so he's balling. But then, the rest of the roster, it's okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah. But their defense is nationally elite. It's top 5 according to Ken Palm. It's number 4 in the country, which is just ridiculous. I mean, Otzelberger came in and gave a team defensive principles that they've needed for years. Tyrese Hunter looks like a beast. I mean, he's going to be a freshman that is just going to get better and better and better and better. They've somehow assembled a roster just randomly. And that's the one end is defense. When you're just throwing a team together, you're like, okay, offensively, they'll be able to score mediocre, what they're doing now. That's kind of what you're expecting. And then on the defensive end, you're like, I don't know, just hope it works. And they're producing a top 5 defense. It's incredible. What Otzelberger's done in his first year at Iowa State is incredible. That team's going to compete for a league title. They're probably not going to win it because they're just not that talented. But goodness, Isaiah Brockington looks like a lead option, which I didn't see coming. Tyrese Hunter looks like a very good freshman. Caleb Grill's hitting shots. Gabe Kalisher looks good. Kuntz had a big game. The announcers love mentioning that he transferred from Washington State. I've heard it at least 7 times this year. So note that. But they've played well. They've been probably the biggest surprise this year because you expected nothing out of them. You expected the worst team in the conference, and they're a top 10 team right now. It's insane. Good for Iowa State. They're the biggest surprise this year. I'm happy for them.
Well, the Big 12 is always competitive. You have 5 teams in the top 25. Texas Tech, Texas, Kansas is always up there, and Baylor's the best team in the country right now. And boy, that Baylor defense is, they're always
so good.
Got a great coach. And I love Matthew Meyer, mullet man.
You gotta love a mullet. You can't not love a mullet. It's a rule. And
he lives up to the hype. He's long, he's athletic, that man can play. But Baylor's just got, Baylor can score whenever they want. They have Kinjo, and Kinjo's their point guard, right?
Yep, it's James Akinjo. I've watched him for years. This is the best he's looked, and it's not close.
But yeah, the Big 12 is always competitive, always fun to watch. So yeah, anything else in the college basketball?
Yeah, I'm gonna run through a couple disappointments. The ACC, just cause it's pretty bad this year. Duke's the only good team. You have North Carolina aren't performing. Virginia looks bad. Syracuse sucks. That's great.
You always like that.
Oh my God, you love to see it. And they're not making the tournament this year. Now, I'm not even gonna put that thought out into the ether. They can't do it. Oregon looks bad this year. Like, they're just not putting it together. And Maryland, I mean, I've said they're frauds for years. So Turgeon leaves. Danny Manning is your head coach. Who's man? They bring in a big man, and Turgeon with a big man has always failed. But they bring in Kudus Wahab, who thinks he's a genius, leaving Patrick Ewing for Mark Turgeon and Danny Manning. He put up 0-2 against Kofi. He got dominated. I mean, Fats Russell, people thought he was going to be an All-American. I love Fats Russell. He's fun. But he's so inconsistent, and that's what he is. He's got a great name, though. Fats Russell, excellent name. Like, Maryland's underperforming. They're 0-3 in conference, so left for them. They didn't make my list because the two are worse, but also I expected this because it's Maryland. They're frauds every year. And some honorable mentions for most surprising. The Big East looks great this year. Providence looks great. Creighton looks already ready. It's just St. John's looks great. It's a whole bunch of teams overperforming. Seton Hall looks like a top 10 team when they're fully healthy, which they haven't been the last couple of weeks. Everyone is playing so well that people think Villanova is almost worse than they are, just because the rest of the Big East is better than people expected.
Yep.
USC is undefeated. Auburn looks great. I mean, Auburn, Wendell Green was a point guard that not enough people were talking about coming out of high school, so he goes to Eastern Kentucky. He has a great year at Eastern Kentucky, transfers up to Auburn, looks great. Auburn just looks like a complete team. Jabari Smith looks like a top 5 pick. They're doing great. And lastly, it's Johnny Davis of Wisconsin. I don't want to admit Wisconsin's good, but dare I say, Johnny Davis has made Wisconsin not only a pretty good team, but fun to watch, which is like the most impossible task ever. He looks absolutely excellent. It doesn't make sense, but he's just awesome. So
the game on Monday against Purdue, he had 37-14
against the best team in the country in Mackey, or not the best team in the country, one of the best teams in the country in Mackey Arena at their home court, and he just dominated them. Jaden Ivey, nothing on him. It was incredible. It was one of the best performances I've ever seen.
Yeah, Purdue is a tough place to win. That place gets loud. So, Johnny Davis, shout out to you. All right, well, that's going to conclude it. We're going to do our shout-outs. I'll start with the shout-outs. It's a rant shout-out, but the NBA All-Star voting came out yesterday, and Kyrie Irving was 6th in point guards. He's played one goddamn game. So, like, why are you on that list? I know I don't think it matters in the end, but, like, he's played one game. Why does he deserve to be on there? Bradley Beal wasn't on there, of course. Yeah, but, like, why is Kyrie Irving on there? He played one game against the Pacers. I just rant. All right, Mike, hit me with your shout out.
Yeah, so my shout out. So it's 2:00 on a Thursday. You know, I am home for the summer. What am I going to do? Oh, San Francisco versus Loyola Chicago. 2 very good college basketball teams are playing. I'm going to turn that broadcast on. You know, why not? The camera looks like, I mean, the guy didn't know what he was doing. He's panning like the wrong way, like it's free throws, and he's panning to the other side of the court. Then, like, it's late in the game. It's a full court press, and he just pans to, like, the other. It's just like, why? But my shout out is the announcer calling this game. He had some absolute bars he dropped. He dropped 3 of my favorite lines I've ever heard. He's nailing Jello. It's like he's nailing Jello to a tree. Apparently that means it's difficult. I had to look it up. I'd never heard that before. He's on him like freckles on a redhead.
That's good.
I mean, it's great. It was so funny. I'm definitely stealing that one. And he picked that up like he was falling out of bed. That was used as a compliment.
What?
It was used as a compliment. Like, he was like, man, that big man, that was an incredibly tough pass for him to get. He picked that up like he was falling out of bed, and he put it in the hoop. I'm like, wait, that's a compliment? It was great. Shout out to that guy. I wish I knew his name. I don't. He's just some random guy that lives in Utah who was where they played the game, and they were just like, yeah, 2 days notice, we'll get this guy on the call. I know nothing about him. I'm going to try to find out who he is, but shout out to that guy. Dropping just absolute bangers.
All right. Give that guy a raise. Give that guy a raise.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, that'll conclude our episode of Mike and Beans. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.
Peace.